Well, good afternoon, Minnesotans. Commissioner Showalter and Budget Director Rayton, State Economist Kolumbakidis, and we're in the revenue building to Commissioner Doty with revenue. I want to thank you and all your teams for the work you do, not just preparing these budget documents for the state of Minnesota, but being stewards of the public dollars and fiscally responsible. In Minnesota, this is good news. It's good news that our fundamentals are strong. We are fiscally disciplined, as you can see, and there is every reason to be optimistic about the future. It also, I think, goes to show that the false choices during COVID-19 that were put in play, that you had to choose people's lives over the economy or vice versa, are simply not true. That you can protect lives, follow the science, do things right, and protect a very diverse and robust economy like we have in Minnesota. So I am grateful for the work that you've done, certainly grateful for the work that Minnesotans have done. And as you've heard, this is a partnership with our federal partners about understanding that the downturn that COVID-19 brought required some of the help that we've seen. I also want to note, some parts of our economy have done incredibly well during this time, like our fiscal markets. I don't know if some of you saw earlier this week, the State Board of Investments met. The State Board of Investments is the board that oversees that is myself as the chair, Attorney General Ellison, State Auditor Blaha, and Secretary of State Simon. And we are responsible by statute to manage the state's finances, especially our pension obligations, to the tune of about $115 billion. That fund did better this year than almost any other year. But the good news about that is Minnesota's fund has done better over the last 10 years and 30 years than 99% of other funds of similar size. And what that means to you as Minnesotans is state finances, especially pension obligations, are as solid as any place in the country. So you see some solid numbers. You see some surplus numbers. You see stability in our economic system. You see a state and a retirement system that is fully funded and solvent, and you see the federal government talking about more help as we move out of COVID. Those are things to celebrate. This is unusual for many of us to be in this room 2 days in a row with positive news. But I also want to continue a theme that emerged early in COVID and has continued on. COVID and its impact, both from a health impact, a social impact, and economic impact, has not hit everyone equally. So when we look at this on these projections and state budget projections, they are not absolutely synonymous with household budgets, because I can guarantee you right now, those hospitality industry workers who were laid off for a portion of this year, who are asked to stay home to protect their neighbors, and those folks that are worried about what happens when eviction moratoriums come to an end, this doesn't change their situation one bit. They're in the same situation they were before that. Or those small businesses that were hit disproportionately hard because of the nature of COVID, and again, asked to curtail their activities that impacted their bottom line. Those still need to be part of how we look forward on this. The good news is we have the capacity, the tools, and the ability, and a resilient economy that we can start thinking about how do we make sure that budget serves all Minnesotans well. So it's a day, I think, to see that decisions that we make financially, decisions that we make health-wise, certainly have implications. And they have implications on the bottom line. This is every analogy from roller coaster to everything has been used from last year when we met. And I can still remember sitting together in that conference room in early February with this team. And I remember the term I used is that this was emerging in Japan. And Japan was thinking about closing schools, and we were just hearing about this here. And I asked Dr. Kolumbakidis, I said, is this a black swan event that wipes out these surpluses and changes the way things were at? And as a good economist, she said maybe, which is what they tend to do. But the point was being that, yes, that's what we have to think about. And again, it was at that point in time where we thought long and hard and gave and presented a one-page supplemental budget and said, let's hold and be cautious and see what the future brings. That was good advice. That was good decision-making, and now we're set in this place. So now we created a budget in December before the impact of the $900 billion stimulus was there. We created a budget according to state law before we had seen numbers. Those numbers are there, but I think that fundamental budget, and as I often say and believe deeply, a budget is both a fiscal document and a moral document. The principles around that were, we need to come out of this stronger than we were. We need to recognize that we need to invest in places that were hit the hardest, the learning in our schools and catching our students back up, making sure those particular businesses are targeted that hurt the most because some did incredibly well, and then making sure that those families that were asked to go through this are brought back. And now it looks like we have the capacity to be able to do that. So I really look forward now. Democracy starts. We're the only state in the nation, again, I'm sure you've heard this one a lot, that has divided state government. And so what we get to do is we get to come together, we get to fashion a budget that looks to the future, that's fair to Minnesotans, that continues to invest in the things that built this economy. And as a priority that I will continue to ask for is that is fair in how we go about it and make sure that we recover from not only COVID-19, but systemic inequalities that we've seen in the past that have led to some of the issues that we're going to have to start to overcome, whether it be home ownership, educational attainment level, or some of the other issues we start to see come up. The good news is Minnesota, we're in a good place to do that. Our state is as strong and stable as any in the nation, and that doesn't happen by chance. It happens with good, solid economic and fundamentals. It happens by having good stewards who manage this, and it happens by making democracy work and reaching compromises. So I'm open to any questions you may have.
Governor, last month you proposed roughly $1.8 billion in tax increases, several different types of them. Are you taking any of them off the table?
Well, what I've said, and again, I hope all of you are very clear, every time I propose something, I always come back and add to it. I'm open to discussing things with people. I'm open to compromising around people. The budget that we asked for was a recognition that we're going to have to recover from COVID, and we're going to have to make investments in education, small businesses, like I said. I was very targeted. I asked 1% of the population, a little less than that, to pay 1% more. I asked for folks, again, to maybe on capital gains to try and do a little bit there, and we put a package together that balanced our budget and invested in Minnesota. With our new numbers coming up, what I can tell you is my commitment to a fair, progressive taxation system is still there, but I am more than willing for us to try and find some compromises that work. And again, I would assume the same question will be asked of the GOP Senate. Are you taking your cuts off to quit cutting epidemiologists at the Department of Health in the middle of a pandemic? And those are the type of compromises where both of us come together and find a way to do that. So this is good news. This is a good place to be. And the answer to that is I am certainly open to us finding this. We have a constitutional and statutory requirement to balance our budget. We will do that. And we also have a moral responsibility to make sure that those most harmed by COVID are given the opportunity to recover. So, Peter?
Governor, on Tuesday, you were asked about the PPP loan taxation issue. And there's also an issue now of the taxation of the $600 a week extra unemployment insurance and the taxation situation around that. You said Tuesday that you wanted to see the forecast first, and now you have. Can you talk about those two issues?
Yeah, I've had it the several hours you've had it, and I said I want fairness in the system. And I am not at this point in time going to negotiate with myself, but I can tell you the principles around this. We certainly want to make sure that where that aid and federal aid was given to businesses who used it exactly like we wanted them to use it and made payrolls and helped fuel some of the things that lifted up this forecast. I certainly want to work for a solution with them. So yes, I think a lot of those things will be out there, and we'll take a look at them to make sure that Minnesota's taxes, as best we can, conform with both letter and spirit of why we wanted to bring those in alignment. So yeah, I'll work with them. Yes, please.
Governor, I'd like to repeat the question that was asked just a moment ago of the commissioner. How much faith can we put in the numbers that we've seen? There's been so much instability in the projections and so much volatility. How much faith do you put in those numbers? Yeah, well, our consultants and Dr. Kalamakidis, again,
myself being a social scientist, there's a lot of good-natured ribbing goes amongst our professions, but there's a lot of data that supports this. It's a volatile time. It was the Black Swan event, and several of them together, but there are fundamentals that can show this. I think that they are very accurate in what they do. I think there's every reason to believe that the trajectory of the vaccine rollout and the suppression of COVID, and these are based, again, I said this when Dr. Klamakitis showed, later this year, the significant rise in consumer spending. I said this is the one time I would say that it looks like the economic data aligns with a layman's gut feeling that people really do want to spend some money and go to Disney World and do some things like that. So I feel relatively confident. I think, though, much like so much of what we do, we need to be thoughtful and cautious. If you recall last year, the discussion last January was, my God, why aren't you giving all the surplus back? This is ridiculous that we have this big surplus. Give it all back. And I said, well, I think we need to be cautious on that, and let's just wait and see what happens a little bit. So there can be volatility. I would say that every indicator seems to lean that there will be this recovery. I don't think it will be quite as V-shaped and as long as sustained, but if we do this right, it'll come back. And when I say we do this right, we can't leave anybody behind in this. We can't forget the folks that got hit. So I have a high degree of confidence in this, but I think, again, I'm not a believer that you let Adam Smith's invisible hand just go to work and everything will be fine. We need to be there to think about what would happen if we see it doesn't accelerate as fast. What if we see if the variants come back and start to spike again? Those types of things can have an impact, and we need to be ready. Yeah.
Governor, we just talk a little bit about cynical politics here? You said we had divided government. We have, if last week's activities are any indication, a Democrat in the governor's office, a Republican-controlled Senate, and a House that has no majority able to muster itself. How can you realistically get your goals passed with the political landscape as it is right now?
Well, we're all going to have to come back to that realization. This is the way it's supposed to work. I said this last time. I didn't expect to get everything that I wanted. I would have liked to gotten a little more. I don't think I proposed it because I wanted it. I am still waiting for someone to tell me how we fix our roads and bridges and stay up on that, because that's going to start to be an economic drain if we don't. But with that being said, it's going to start with, and I need to hear this from the other side. You don't come and say, nope, it's a line in the sand, and that's it. I appreciate strong positions. You feel morally and philosophically, wedded to something. But what Minnesotans need to see us do is they need to make sure the roads are fixed. They need to make sure that we're getting the vaccines and those types of things, and that we're continuing to do testing. We're educating our children. I think there's still, the public exerts enormous pressure for us to work together and find some solution. And it comes the end of May, we need a budget. And again, there's leverage with the public on this. If you're not willing to compromise, you shut everything down. And that's not the way this is supposed to work. Now, I do worry. I think you bring up a good point. I do worry that the all or nothing demonize the other side. They are the enemy. They don't agree with anything we do. And I've got to fight this to the death, because otherwise I'm going to have to go face a voter constituency in my base that asks me, why did you compromise with the other side? I'm going to have to try and bring them together.
Well, forgive me, maybe I didn't ask the question bluntly enough. Don't you have to get your own party in order to get anything negotiated with the Republicans?
Well, the legislature will do what they need to do. It's early. It's February. They're working on things. I think this is all part of it, and they're trying to find. I don't want to be in a party where everybody thinks exactly the same. I don't want somebody where there's ideological litmus tests, and that's because I can tell you, again, like I always said, it does not matter what the economic forecast is. My Republican friends are going to say cut spending and cut taxes. It doesn't matter what it is. I think this debate that's happening over there is healthy, and at the end of the day, we'll have to come together. But it's still early. So, Eric?
Yeah, following up on David's line of questioning, Governor, how firm are you going to be on your education number? And with this extra money now, do you need a tax increase to get something that's acceptable to you?
Well, I'm firm on my education numbers, but again, I'm not going to negotiate with myself at this point. This is what usually happens because I have to put mine out early. But I'm not asking for these things because they're like pet projects for me. These are numbers that are starting to come out that school districts are showing us. We know that we're going to have to do some of this work to catch back up. And I think it makes sense. The good news about this is I would have to believe the constituencies of whether they're Democrats or Republicans in the House and Senate, their schools know that they need this too and can get it right. But we'll discuss it. We'll have it. I think the variable in this, as the commissioner said too, is the variable is the next federal stimulus package and how it's targeted. So Eric, you got to follow up?
Yeah, is it fair to say now that the tax hike is not a must-have, that that can go away as part of the negotiations?
Well, I'm not going to, again, negotiate. If the same fairness is that any cuts and the need to plus up education are now gone on the other side, that's how we'll start to come together. I don't ask for the tax hikes to be punitive or that I like to do that. I still remind people at this point in the privilege of being governor of Minnesota, I have not raised taxes ever. And with that being the case, this was put in with the idea. I do still think we're going to have to come to grips with, both as a nation and as a state, income inequities and what happened during this pandemic that exacerbated those, because that starts to lead to all these other social ills that cost money in the long run too. But what I would say is, yes, the situation has vastly improved, but this ability to try and balance out how and who is getting hit the hardest on this is still there, but there may be other ways to do it.
Governor, how different does the news of the surplus make the budget debate at the Capitol? I mean, before we were talking about a potential deficit, and potential need for state spending cuts or tax increases and things like that. But now that we're looking at a surplus, we might end up in a place with a divided legislature that we sort of see a status quo type of outcome, which we may have seen a couple years ago during the last budget setting session. So if you had to say, sort of big picture, what needs to get done in this year, what would some of those priorities be?
We need to recover from COVID. And I don't want to use the term status quo, but I understand, I think your analogy was pretty good about, do we reach kind of a stasis point where we can get by? I think so. I hope so that we can do that. The one thing is that I have learned this, and this is true, and I heard a very seasoned legislator tell me this, especially as governor. Be wary of surpluses, especially if you have the majority, because that puts immense pressures on where those things are going to go, and we just need to be smart about it. I do think we shouldn't look past that good fiscal management, a robust, broad economy, and I would argue a thoughtfulness during the year of COVID has put us in a pretty strong position. And as long, for me, again, those basic principles, I just keep coming back to this. If we can come up with a budget that makes sure our children are taken care of and we start to catch back up from that, and that those businesses, especially those small businesses and those families, especially in the hospitality industry, that we're doing something more there. My equate of this is, we went to war in this thing. We sent some to the front line, whether they be hospital workers and things, but we also sent small businesses to that. Whenever we do that, we pay hazard pay to our soldiers. We do things for their families. We lift them up. I'm just saying, if we can come up with a budget that brings some fairness to that part of the economy and brings things up, and then lets us get back to where we need to be. I'm still going to, what are our solutions around transportation? Can we start talking about what is our long-term plan around health insurance premiums continuing to go up rather than kicking that can down the road? So I hope we don't get just into a status quo. I think the good news on this is we're in a position to help as many Minnesotans as possible and have a fiscally sound budget. Brian?
Governor, you brought up the federal stimulus, and if there is some money for state, local governments, and school districts, do you see that as an add-on to your budget, or do you see it as areas where it could substitute for some state spending and maybe take some of the pressure off?
Yeah, I think probably the latter is the way we should look at this. I do think, though, that this is going to be very targeted. Again, I would ask that maybe now is the time, and that maybe what this breaks the logjam a little bit. There's folks that want to do some of these issues around taxation, and there's folks that, like myself, who know school districts need to know right now what's going to happen this summer. So maybe what we know what's coming from the federal government for that additional education support, that we can use that and move that right now. So I think I'm looking at it as, again, it isn't about piling on. And again, if you look, my budget did not ask for a whole bunch of new programs. It asked to support our students, and then it asked for us to make sure that those businesses that were hit the hardest are taken care of. So I think there's every reason to believe we can use that to help out. This is a good problem for us to have right now. But again, we still have not addressed, even pre-COVID, income inequities, school achievement where we were going to, my Due North education plan. Now it makes sense to do that. And it's not all about resources, but it is about making sure that we're funding those things that impact students. So I'm really hopeful that this opens up a lot of discussions. Got a couple more? Yep.
Governor, I'd like to switch topics to the SAFE Act. I want to get your reaction to the Senate plan, which cuts $20 million out of it. I also have been wondering, were you aware that the add-ons, the Mariani amendments were coming, and did you approve of those? And at this point, are you hoping and looking for a bill that really resembles what you originally proposed, and that would kind of be the Johnson amendment? Is that what you're looking for? Is that what you're hoping for?
First of all, I don't approve, and the House and Senate don't have to ask for the governor's approval on things, but we try and move together. I crafted a piece of legislation I thought had the support, the broad as we could, of law enforcement, of the community. Obviously, there's still frictions there, and that's the part that has to go. I want to get something that can get to my desk that I'll be able to sign, and it seems to me that they should be able to find that place now that there's, especially with a divided legislature, they should be able to work out those kinks. And so I don't tell them what things to put in there. I told them what I thought was probably the most possible to get there. I hope that this idea of I don't understand it actually, why there's like this punitive nature towards the city of Minneapolis, of why that would be there. It just, the logic makes no sense to me in that, well, they didn't want to do this, so we're not going to help them on that. We're all in this together. So I'm still hopeful. And as I said last week, I'm willing to help, get involved, do whatever, but that I have to actually be executing. We are now 10 days away. And as you've seen, preparations have obviously begun and they will continue. Yep.
Governor, the hospitality industry you mentioned, and this report shows that it would appear that they make up about half of the jobs lost last year. Republicans on a phone call this morning said that that's an area where they'd want to look at further relief. Are you open to perhaps another rescue aid package for restaurants, bars?
Yeah, my budget had $50 million in there of forgivable assistance to those businesses. Absolutely. And I think depending on how much we have, again, it may be framed a little different, I'm sure, on why they think those businesses were hurting, they being Senate Republicans, but we do have agreement that these businesses bore the brunt of COVID-19. And because of that, I think it makes sense that we would be able to help them. I think that's the good news, that if we target this and recognize, I think that's a healthy discussion that happened actually in the United States Congress, that how do you target relief checks? How do you target relief? And I was on with a conversation this morning with Governor Burgum of North Dakota on a lot of different issues, really healthy discussion about how state finances are in different places. Some of it's because of the economy. States like North Dakota, depending on what's happening in the oil economy and some of those things, that they can go. Same with Minnesota. And I think there's a healthy discussion about, can we be more surgical and targeted in how we provide relief? And I think that's what this budget, let's help those kids. Let's do schools. Let's do those small businesses, especially focusing around hospitality and some of those hurt the most. And then the families that got impacted by that. I think there's that is a place where it seems to me there's a lot of commonality that we could find a solution. So for Minnesotans, I just want to let you know that this is good news today. I, in fact, decided when I came here, I put on my State Fair corn dog socks, which I haven't worn in 2 years, because I'm feeling more optimistic. We have not had 2 days in a row where we've come together, but just like you Minnesotans, you might have had 2 days in a row where you weren't feeling stress. Stress and anxiety about your job, stress and anxiety about your health, your parents' health, stress and anxiety about getting a vaccine, and your kids being back in school. All of those things have added an awful lot, but I'm still convinced smart, responsible budgeting. And again, we're doing this together. We did it last time. We did a budget that doesn't seem like it's possible you get anything done, because I think we're probably going to see a COVID relief package not have a single Republican vote in it. I'm pretty sure their mayors want some help. I'm pretty sure there's some of their restaurants, but I think here in Minnesota, we should try and go back again and strive for that. I'd like to see some of these pieces of legislation pass with majorities of both sides, if they could, or if not, I dealt with it in Congress, this Hastert rule thing, that we won't bring anything up if we can't pass it just with our people. Pass something that gets some of the other side. If we can peel off a few of both sides, if that's what's right, we should start to look for that. And again, we're actually the incubator of this. We're the only place in the country that could actually show it in action, that you could have the two different bodies find some collaboration, and we'll do that. So I have to tell you, we're going into March, which sounds incredible. We have to have this done down there towards the end of May. Fishing opener will be happening. You already know that we'll be clear down the list where healthy young folks will be getting the vaccine. Dr. Klambakidis and the economists show us that the economy should be rebounding relatively solidly. That should give us a lot of optimism to just put Minnesotans at ease. Let's just get our work done, leave them alone, because I think, to be honest with you, getting healthy, going fishing, doing the things you want to do with your family, but how great will it be that you do not have to turn on the TV and see a state briefing on some crisis or the federal government on some crisis, and you can just go about. We're pretty close to that. And I think how we handle ourselves over the next 90 days can go a long ways to building that confidence. So thank you all. Thanks to your team.